Hello YouTube, welcome to another League of Legends guide. Today we're covering our last guide for patch 6.21. We're doing mid lane Orianna.
We will kill your enemies. That will be fun.
6.22 came out today, so of course we're going to start doing those assassin reworks in our next upcoming champion guides. I'm going to be throwing up a poll on my Twitter at egaming_TV asking which assassin guides you guys want to see first, so if you're interested in having an input in what we do first, make sure you head over to Twitter and vote there. This is going to be a reoccurring thing every single night, so you guys can have a better input on what guide comes out the following day. Of course, all of our links and the timestamps for this guide will be found in the video description, so make sure you look there. So now that I got that out of the way, let's hop into this actual guide with Orianna's pros and cons. Orianna is a champion with great team utility and has excellent wave clear. She scales well into the mid and late game, and she's a pretty solid champion at all stages of the game. She has great early game harass from her Q, W, and auto attack, and she's very easy to last hit on from that bonus ability power on her auto attack from her passive. She is, however, a fairly mana hungry champion, and you can't do all the harassing you would like because it does cost you a big chunk of mana. She's then fairly hard to learn and master because you have to worry about your ball positioning, and she does have a very skill shot reliant kit. Then last, of course, there is the fact that she doesn't have a solid escape. Sure, she does have movement speed from her W, but that's all she really has. For our Masteries, we go 12 Ferocity and 18 Cunning, grabbing Thunderlord's Decree as our Keystone Mastery. Now yes, of course, the Masteries do look a little bit different in 6.22, but these are still the ones you're going to want to grab because they are by far the strongest on Orianna. Get that nice burst from Thunderlords, and then focus on getting some magic penetration, sustain, and as much ability power as possible. For our runes, we go for magic penetration reds, scaling health yellows, magic resist blues, and ability power quints. The magic penetration and ability power will be great for harassing the enemy champion and of course great in team fights, and then the scaling health yellows and magic resist blues make us decently tanky in that mid lane. For our first summoner spell, you'll need to grab Flash. It's mandatory on Orianna since you do lack an escape tool, and it will save you many times in the game. Ghost is then my second favorite summoner spell, and usually the one I take for my second slot. It's great for repositioning and chasing, and you can even use it as a second escape tool. Now with the assassin patch that just came out, you're going to see a lot more assassins, and you're going to usually want to opt for exhaust or barrier. If you're against something with longer duration all-ins, like something like a Yasuo or a Zed, then you'll want to opt for exhaust. But of course there's barrier as well. It is great for surviving that heavy burst damage as well, and it also works really great when you combine it with your command protect because the shield will be pretty damn big. So now let's move on to those abilities, starting with your passive, Clockwork, Wind Up. So the first part is simply called the Ball. Orianna is accompanied by the Ball, which she commands with her abilities, has a 0.15 second global cooldown between casts, and the Ball attaches to / blinks back to Orianna if she is near it or too far away from it. Now that second part, Clockwork Winding, Orianna's basic attacks deal between 10 and 50 based on level, plus 15% bonus magic damage, and applies Clockwork Winding, stacking up to twice. Clockwork Wind Up deals 20% bonus damage per stack, up to 140% total. So the first part doesn't mean too much, it's just if you are too far away from the ball, or if you do walk on top of it, you will pick it up again. The second part is really strong though. Your basic attacks dealing bonus magic damage make last hitting really easy, and you can really bully the enemy champion with that bonus damage on those auto attacks, so make sure you're doing so. Now let's start actually controlling the ball with your Q, Command Attack. Orianna commands the ball to fly to the target location and remain there, dealing magic damage to all enemies it passes through, but reduced by 10% for each enemy hit, down to a minimum of 40% damage. So this is your main ability for harassing and also last hitting minions. Of course you also have your basic attack, but I did say ability. If you are against a melee champion who has to come into minion waves to last hit, this is a great way to zone them as they don't really want to go towards your ball because it's really easy to hit them with another command attack or just simply activate your W. Use this ability to abuse that enemy mid laner, follow up with other combos, or just simply last hit. Now is that W, Command Dissonance. Orianna commands the ball to emit an electrical pulse around its current location, dealing magic damage to all enemies around it and leaving an electrical field on the area for 3 seconds. Orianna and/or her allies gain bonus movement speed upon stepping on the field. Enemies in turn are slowed for the same amount, decaying over 2 seconds after leaving the field. So this ability does work really great with your Q because you'll hit the enemy champion with your Q, and since they'll be on it, you can activate the W to do more damage and slow the enemy opponent. Your early game harassment tool will be to use your Q and W, but they do have high mana costs, so you can't do this too much during the lane phase. The other way you're going to want to use this ability is if you are getting ganked, make sure the ball's on top of you, then activate that W, gaining movement speed, and then you can simply run away. Alright, let's cover that last basic ability, our E, Command Protect. So for the passive, the ball grants whoever it's attached to bonus armor and magic resist, and this is between 10 and 30. When activated, Orianna commands the ball to fly to the target allied champion or herself and attach itself to her target, dealing magic damage to all enemies it passes through and shielding her target on arrival for 4 seconds. So the passive is pretty solid because whenever the ball is going to be on top of you, you will take reduced damage as you'll have more armor and magic resist. When you are trading with the enemy opponent, you want to use your Q and W, and when they go to trade damage back onto you, you can use your Command Protect to get a shield and reduce that damage. The last way you'll want to use this ability is to put it onto somebody that is jumping into a team fight so you can activate your ultimate, since of course they're going to be near your ball, dealing a lot of damage. Well, speaking of your ultimate, it's pretty damn good, and it's called Command Shockwave. Orianna commands the ball to unleash a shockwave after a 0.75 second delay, dealing magic damage to all enemies and flinging them towards and possibly over the ball. So this can be extremely devastating in team fights. You'll want to use either your Q or E ability to get the ball into the middle of a team fight, and then activate that shockwave to pull them all into the center so they are clumped up. You can then use your W to do even more damage, and your team is going to be able to follow up on a very clumped team, usually doing devastating damage. For our skill order, of course we're going to put 1 point into our ultimate whenever we can at 6, 11, and 16. Then we focus on our Q for its harassing and last hitting, and then move on to our W because it does combo really well with our Q. We then max our E last. We do get 1 early point so we can put the shield onto ourselves so we can survive some engagements. If you're in a really hard matchup and you think you need that armor, magic resist, and shield, then you'll want to start with your E at level 1, otherwise save it for level 3. In a normal game, you'll want to pick up your Q at level 1. For our first combo, we have our harassment combo. We first start off by hitting our enemy with our command attack, then activating our W, command dissonance. Then we auto attack once. This will hit the enemy 3 times and proc your Thunderlord's Decree, doing even more damage. If the enemy is going to trade some damage onto you, you can use your Command Protect to pull it back to you, reducing the harassment you take in return. For our full combo, we hit the enemy with our Command Attack and then use our Command Shockwave. This will hopefully pull in multiple enemies, and then we can activate our Command Dissonance to hit those targets. Then, if needed, we can pull the ball back through the enemy team, dealing even more damage and giving us a shield. Of course, if you do have an initiator on your team, your first step could be putting your E Command Protect onto that target, and when they are near the enemies, then you would Shockwave. Orianna has a pretty strong early game, and she will outtrade the majority of AP mid laners until level 6. Make sure you're auto-attacking the enemy mid laner when you can. It will deal a lot of damage with your passive. Then of course, when the enemy wants to trade damage, make sure you use your Command Protect so you do get a shield and hopefully take no damage at all. You'll also want to harass the enemy champion with your Command Attack and your Command Dissonance, but that combo, keep in mind, does cost a lot of mana, so don't overuse it. You will, however, want to do this combo whenever you can, and make sure you are landing your auto attacks in between to harass the enemy out of that mid lane, and if you can, push the minion wave after. This of course will make them lose some XP and gold. Orianna also has a pretty damn solid mid game. In those team fights that are going to start occurring in the mid game, she'll be able to bring a lot of damage and some excellent crowd control. She does make for a pretty solid roamer from the mobility she gets from Command Dissonance, but her ganks aren't that incredible. She relies on landing a bunch of skill shots, and the enemy can always flash out of her Command Shockwave before it goes off. If you do, however, have a jungler with a gap closer like a Mumu, Sejuani, or Jarvan, it does become a hell of a lot better because you can put your ball on that target and then Shockwave. When you're still farming mid lane, take the small Razor Beaks when you can and focus on getting as much farm as possible. Late game starts to become all about landing some clutch Command Shockwaves in team fights to give your team a really big advantage. Now, as I have said a few times already, playing Orianna is a lot easier when you have a vessel to take your ball onto the enemy team. All you'll have to do is use your Command Protect on somebody that has a strong engage, and when there are a lot of targets nearby, activate your Command Shockwave. You're also of course able to help your other carries on your team with your Command Protect. If your AD carry is getting dived on, try to help them out. Then finally, after you do win a team fight, make sure you're following up with an objective like Tower, Dragon, or Baron. Now we're going to look at 3 of our hardest matchups, starting with Xerath. He's going to be a hard matchup for Orianna due to his high range and poke damage. You're going to have to work on dodging his skills as much as possible and try to de-push the minion wave since he will try to usually shove that lane. Harass him if he gets too close, but other than that, you're going to be dodging those spells. Next up, we have Varus, and he's another hard matchup because of his long-range poke damage yet again. Focus on dodging his piercing arrow as much as you can, and when it's down, you can then go for trades. Try not to push the lane too much because he is very gankable, so usually you want to have him at least in the middle of the lane so you can get help from your jungler. So last here is Talon. He's another hard matchup, and he's somebody you're going to see a lot more often because of the Assassin rework patch. He does a ton of damage, and you're going to need an early Seeker's Arm Guard just to survive that damage. All you can do is survive in that lane, get as much farm as you can, and for the love of God, do not let him snowball, because that's a very good way to lose the game. So now let's finish off this guide with our item build, which starts with a Doran's Ring, Health Potion, and Warding Totem. For our core build, we have Morellonomicon, Luden's Echo, and a Rabadon's Death Cap. The Morellonomicon is a great way to keep up some mana since you are very mana hungry and get 20% CDR. Luden's Echo is really solid as well because you will get some much needed movement speed, and of course you will have increased burst damage, and Rabadon's is an exceptional item for getting full on AP. Now Rylai's Crystal Scepter is a very good alternative, especially for the Luden's Echo. If you are in a harder matchup, you will want to probably grab this item so you do have more of a health pool, so you can survive an all-in combo. Of course, before you get the Morellonomicon, if you are against an assassin, then you may want to get that Seeker's Arm Guard, just to reduce the damage you take. But after all that, we then move on to our boot options, which is Sorc Shoes or Ionian Boots. Generally, I opt for the Sorc Shoes for that magic penetration, but Ionians are pretty strong as well, because you do get 10% CDR. So for our item pool, it's not too large, but there is some very good options. First would be Void Staff. It's something you're usually going to get because people will have magic resist, and of course this will help you get through that magic resist so you can deal more damage. Zhonya's is probably our best defensive pickup. I get it almost all the time as well. The Stasis is a very, very strong activate. Abyssal Scepter is a pretty strong item as well. It did get changed in 6.22. It doesn't reduce magic resist, but it will make you do 10% more magic damage, which is pretty damn good. Then we have Seraphs. It's an okay defensive as well, but we will need to pick up a tier early on, which is something I usually don't like to do. Then if we're against a very tanky team, we could get Leandries for that burn and some more magic penetration, and Guardian Angel is a great defensive as well, so we can come back to life. For my normal full build, I'll take my core, take Sorc Shoes, and then a Void Staff, and of course the Zhonya's. You'll deal a lot of damage, yet you will have a really great defensive activate from that Zhonya's. So that is everything I've got on mid lane Orianna. Don't forget to check out our Twitter. As you guys are listening to this, there will be a vote up there for the next champion guide we're going to do in the Assassin rework, so if you want to put in your input, then of course you can vote there. Of course, all of our other links are going to be down in the video description as well. So, thank you guys a ton for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy the guide and you're looking forward to the Assassin rework ones I'm going to be doing very, very soon. So, on that note, take care, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.
So aren't you glad to meet me? I think you should, I'd be glad to meet me. If I were you, aren't you glad to meet me? I think you should. I make a real good song out of you, time and ticking slow. Yes, you're overdue, aren't you glad to meet me?